Our environment. So in this chapter, our environment, we are going to discuss about the various issues that are connected to the environment. So we know different things about our environment. Most importantly, we notice that there are so many changes happening in the environment, so which are affecting our life. We learn about all this in the newspapers. We learn that there are some changes in the environment which are affecting the life of people, which are affecting the life of other organisms, other animals. The diversity is affected. So what is environment? It is a combination of various things. Environment is nothing but your surroundings, which is made up of different things, different components. Your environment consists of physical components. Your environment consists of biological components, biotic components. So all these components are interacting with each other and they have a natural setup, natural cycles called as biogeocycles. By which the materials present in one form or one component is transferred to another component. Again, it will reach back to the original component. In this way, the minerals are exchanged. The chemicals are exchanged between the earth and the surroundings. So this is all happens naturally. So naturally, there will be some changes in the environment, and naturally the changes or the cycling of materials takes place in a natural process. But that is by the human intervention, that is by the aggressive human activities towards the process of development. We are doing so many activities which are disturbing these cycles. What are they? Biogeocycles. So what it causes? This disturbance, it causes mainly one thing in the environment, that is pollution. Pollution means the natural state of a component is disturbed. The natural composition of air is disturbed. We are adding so many useless, poisonous gases into the air pollution. That means we are disturbing the natural percentages, natural composition, natural balance of that particular component. What is that component? Air. We are doing it by various activities. Burning a lot of fossil fuels in the vehicles, running so many factories to produce the goods. By all these ways, we are generating a lot of poisonous gases or waste gases into the air. We are releasing all these gases into the air. So the air is said to be polluted. When it is said to be polluted, when the unwanted substances are present in it, then the normal levels which it is having, you can call it as it is polluted. So this kind of pollution, disturbance to the environment is being created. So it affects the life of people, it affects the crops, it affects the animals, it affects the human beings' health. Everything is affected by this. And it leads to so many major problems. The pollution leads to global warming. Global warming leads to increase in temperatures. It leads to melting of ice caps, depletion of ozone, high radiation, crop shifting. So many kind of consequences are linked up to this changes in the environment. But as I told you, there are some changes in the environment which are naturally run by these biogeocycles. But these cycles are disturbed by our intervention. Now we are going to see how the human intervention, how the human activities are influencing the environment and what are its consequences. Now let us see the first one. The human activity that disturbs the environment, the major human activity is that adding waste to the environment. What is the waste? What does it mean? Waste is something which is useless, purposeless, which is thrown into the environment, which is naturally not a part of the environment. If it is a natural material, it can mix it in the environment. So we are throwing a lot of waste every day. You can check what kind of waste you are throwing in the garbage truck that comes to your house every day to collect the garbage. Your mother or you may be carrying the garbage bin, or the person may come, the municipality or corporation person may come, he may take the garbage bin and dump it in the garbage truck. So if you observe the garbage, what kind of things you find in them? You find in that fruit or vegetable peels, and you may find packing material and leftover food and other materials, other waste. So if you see what kind of waste you are throwing in the garbage bin, you may find some fruit peels, you may find some package material, you may find some food and other materials. You may find some paper or cloth. But do you think that all these materials, they take part in the biogeocycles? Do you think that all these materials, they mix up with the environment without any problem? No. So the environment may take up certain materials without any problem. Means the environment consists of certain cycles, biogeocycles, biogeochemical cycles, in which certain materials, they mix up in the environment. They may be easily mixed up with the soil. They may be easily mixed up with the air. But sometimes, in some cases, certain materials cannot mix up in the environment. Even though they mix up with the environment, they mix with the soil or they mix with the air, they may cause some problems. See, for example, the packing material. Most of the packing material is comprised of plastic. We see that we carry many of the things in plastic covers. Many of the items are wrapped in plastic covering. So plastic is unavoidable material today. That is either for packing, even to carry the food items also the plastic is being used. So if you wanted to carry some curry or curd or milk, everything is packed in plastic. Even whatever the wrappers you eat, chips you eat, biscuits you eat, chocolates you eat, everything is wrapped in plastic. So all this plastic waste, the packaging material is thrown into the garbage bin, that is thrown into the environment. So what happens to that? Environment is not having the mechanisms to digest each and everything, just like you. So you are there, we are the humans. If we are given an apple, yes, we can eat the apple, we can digest it. We can get energy out of the apple. How? Because we can digest it. For digestion, what do we have? Enzymes. And we have some biochemical cycles in our body. We have some biochemical cycles. So the biochemical cycles, with the help of these enzymes, they break down the apple into energy. So if you take apple, banana, fruits, vegetables, rice, grains, pulses, all these things, definitely you get energy. All these things are converted to energy with the help of enzymes, or they are present in your body. But if you are given a bit of wood, if you are given a bit of coal, if you are given a bit of stone to eat, can you get energy? Will your body digest this stone or a small piece of coal or a small piece of wood? Definitely not. Your body cannot digest stone, wood or coal, such materials. If you eat a metal can you digest? No. Because you don't have enzymes to digest that material in your body. Here you may notice one more thing. If a cockroach, it has eaten a small bit of paper, it can digest. It has got the enzymes to digest that paper or leather, but you don't have. In such a way, the environment is not having the facility, it is not having the cycles, biogeochemical cycles to digest everything, to decompose everything, to degrade everything. So degradation is not possible for every material in the environment. Such cases, what happens? They remain in the environment and cause problems. Sometimes, if they are even degraded, the degraded form is also not good for the people. Even though the materials are degraded, they get accumulated in the environment. That means they cannot change from one form to another form easily. For example, they are accumulated in the soil. See, for example, any natural thing, a plant or an animal died. So the dead animal, it decomposes in the soil. The minerals present in the animal are reaching the soil. So once they reach the soil, again from the soil they reach to the air, they reach to the plants. So in this way they are circulated. But certain substances, even though they are degraded, even though they are reached to soil, they cannot enter the air, they cannot enter the other organisms, they get accumulated in a particular place, which leads to pollution. So this is what happens when the waste is added to the environment. Then all the waste is not degraded. Some waste is degraded. Of course, if it is degraded, it may not be able to circulate among the different components of the environment. So it get accumulated and causes pollution. So now let us see what is an ecosystem. You have already studied about ecosystem. Ecosystem is comprised of biotic and abiotic components. So what is ecosystem? It is a part of the environment. Ecosystem is a self-sustainable unit in which an organism can live completely throughout its life, whereas all the biotic and abiotic components of an ecosystem, they interact with each other and they maintain a balance. So if you see such an ecosystem, you find two things: biotic factors and abiotic components. Biotic components and abiotic components. We can call these abiotic components as physical components also. So what are these physical or abiotic? It includes temperature, rainfall, wind, humidity, soil, minerals. These are the abiotic components. What are the biotic components? Plants, animals and microorganisms. You see any ecosystem, it consists of plants, animals and microorganisms. So they interact with each other. If you see an ecosystem, the biotic components, they interact with each other and they even interact with the abiotic components. So there is a lot of interaction and they affect each other. For example, a plant is there. A plant has to grow. For the growth of the plant, energy is required. That is supplied by the sun, temperature, sunlight. Light is also a physical component. So this abiotic factor, that is the sunlight, is affecting the growth of the plant. Rain is important for the growth of plants. So rain is the another physical component that is influencing the growth of plants. So in this way they are interrelated. They are affected by each other. So this is on basing what this ecosystem, it survives. That is, an ecosystem, if you find an ecosystem, in that ecosystem, we will see the interactions between the biotic and abiotic components. But here, we already discussed that if something additional which is not a part of that particular environment is added to that, it leads to pollution. If something is brought between this by human activities, the interactions are disturbed. It affects the life of these organisms. Certain organisms may die. So a tree is an ecosystem. You have an ecosystem, a tree. The farmer, the tree has got so many fruits, the tree has got so many flowers, the tree has got so many birds, it has got squirrels, it has got caterpillars, it has got ants, likewise so many organisms. The farmer who is owning the tree, he don't want any insects on the tree because he thinks that they cause damage to the product, to the produce, to the fruits. So he sprayed some chemical, insecticide on the tree. The insects died, but it causes a disturbance among the natural relationships between these biotic and abiotic components. It disturbs the natural relation between the biotic components. If the insects are destroyed there, some other organisms might have depended on that insects. So in this way, it creates a disturbance. So the disturbance in an ecosystem, that means the disturbance between the relationships between the biotic and abiotic components is done by human activities, that is by pollution. Now let us see what are these components in the biotic components, what are the plants, animals, how they are categorized there, how the energy relations are built up there in an ecosystem, and how the food relations are built up in this ecosystem. Let us see. So now in the biotic components, just we spoke about the different parts of the biotic components. Simply we told that plants, animals and microorganisms. So here, on basing the food relation, we can categorize the living organisms in the biotic components. So the biotic component, it includes the living organisms. Now here, categorize them according to the food relation or energy relation. So by that we can understand the relation between different organisms, the interdependence between different organisms in a better way by that categorization. So according to the food relations or energy relations or energy requirements, if you categorize that, the first category we talk about is producers. So producers are the part of a biotic component. Biotic components means living organisms. In that living organisms, there is a category called as producers, which is a very important and main category. Why we are calling it as a producer? So who is the producer? Who produces? He is a producer. What it produces? What these organisms produce? They produce the food. They produce the food for the other organisms. So food is available in the form of chemicals, chemical form for all of us. If we are talking about humans, we solely depend on chemical energy. We are eating a burger, we are eating a pizza, it is nothing but made up of certain materials like wheat flour, atta, maida, oil. All these are nothing but biochemicals. They are made up of proteins, amino acids, carbohydrates. So those are the biochemicals. So we get energy in the form of food. Food is nothing but a mixture of various chemicals. Chemicals in the sense, not the chemicals in the laboratory jars or tins. These are the chemicals which can provide us energy. So that kind of chemical form of energy is produced by these producers. How they are able to produce that chemical form of energy? How they are able to produce the food? Producers, they give us the food. These producers, they take up the solar energy. They are capable of converting the solar energy into food energy, chemical energy. So that is the great ability of the producers. All the green plants and all the microorganisms which have the green substance chlorophyll, which are able to convert the solar energy into chemical energy, that is glucose, are called producers. You can take blue-green algae. Even though it is not a plant, it is a microorganism, it is a very small organism. Even then it has got green color pigment. Even certain protozoans, they have green color chlorophyll which can prepare their own food. So all these are the producers. That means they fix the solar energy, they fix the solar radiation into energy, which can be consumed by other organisms, that is food. So these are called as producers. So producers are the main base of the ecosystem. They are in very large number. Now let us talk about the second group, consumers. Consumers. If you look into the social studies, who is a consumer? Who consume the product? Who go and buy the product? Who go and get the product? He is a consumer. Who consumes it? Who uses it? He is a consumer. Here, whatever the food is prepared by the producers, a part of the food is consumed by the consumers. We are consuming the food prepared by the producers. You are eating fruits, vegetables, rice and all these that have come from the plants. So plants, they produced the food. Of course, not exactly for you. Plants produced the food for their own purpose, but it is in excess that is used by other organisms. So the energy is transferred from producers to consumers in the form of food. Again, in the consumers, there are so many levels: primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. Anyway, we will see that relation later. So, the second group is consumers. Consumers are the organisms which depend on other organisms for their food requirements or energy requirements. Consumers, you can take all animals including humans and many microorganisms, all these are consumers. So, do we have any other category here? Already we spoke in the first part of this lesson, any materials added to the environment, what happens to the material? We discussed about adding waste to the environment. Among the waste what we have added to the environment, a part of the waste is degraded, mixed up with the soil. Say for example, fruit peels. You throw fruit peels in the soil. After a few days, you find that the fruit peels are mixed up with the soil. That means the fruit peels are decomposed, degraded. But if you throw a polythene paper, it doesn't mix up with the soil for a very long period. You can see still it is remain in the soil. That means the soil, it consists of certain group of organisms which can decompose the organic waste or bio waste. See, fruit peels, vegetable peels, paper, cloth, these kind of materials can be degraded, biodegradable materials. But how they can degrade? That is by the action of certain organisms. We call such organisms as decomposers. Decomposers, especially bacteria. Bacteria are called as decomposers because they decompose it. So whenever you leave some food item outside for 1 or 2 days, any cooked food item, you see that it gets spoiled. That means bacteria, fungus, they start degrading that. They start decomposing it. It is a very important natural process. If that is not done, the whole world will be full of waste. The whole planet is accumulated with a lot of waste. All the waste is not accumulated. The degradable part of the waste is degraded every time. That is by the action of certain organisms called as decomposers. So here we see 3 different categories: producers, consumers and decomposers. Now let us see the interdependence between these groups or these categories, and let us find the food relations, their part in the environment and their percentage in the environment, and let us see the energy flow between each level, how the energy flows, and which organisms are at the base, which organisms are at the top. Let us see now. So now let us see the relation between various parts, various organisms of the biotic components. So we discussed that they are interdependent. Different organisms present in an environment are interdependent. Different organisms present in an ecosystem are interdependent. They depend on each other. For what? They depend on each other mainly for food. So to understand the food relations between various organisms, if you see that there, if you observe the food relations, you find the food relations in the form of food chains or food webs. See, if you make a note of that, which organism is eaten by which organism is eating which organism, or how an organism gets its food, what is the source. If you see these relations, you find the relations that are in the form of a chain, then you call it as a food chain. If the relations are in the form of a web, you call it as a food web. Let us begin with the source of energy, that is sun, solar energy. There is a lot of solar energy, solar radiation. We are not capable of harvesting all the solar energy. So there is no need of electricity. But we don't have that much of technology. The solar technology is still developing, the solar panels and converting the sun energy to other forms energy. But you see the plants, they are capable of converting the solar energy into chemical energy, that is the food energy. So they are called as producers. The green plants are the organisms that have green substance which can prepare food from the sun energy or sunlight, are called as producers. They are called as producers. What do they produce? They produce the food. So they're called as producers. They're also, okay, they produce food. It is a major source of energy for all the next categories. So on the first category, you find the producers. The next one, primary consumers. Primary consumers may be herbivores, not always herbivores. We cannot say that the primary consumers are always herbivores. So primary consumers may be herbivores means which eat only plant part, only depend on plants, are called herbivores. So the primary consumer, it depends on the producer. The sun energy, how much of energy is converted to food, how much amount of energy can be harvested by these producers, only 1%. 1% of solar energy is taken by the producers. So the producers, they produce the food that is taken by primary consumers. Primary consumers are dependent on plants. So here the energy transfer only 10%. 10% of energy is transferred into this. There is a lot of wastage. We'll see what are the factors that contribute to that wastage. So the primary consumers are eaten by the secondary consumers. Secondary consumers, a bird. Here you can see the primary consumer, an insect, it eats the grains of the plant. Primary consumer. You can see the secondary consumer, a bird. Bird is the secondary consumer. So this bird may be eaten by a fox. Fox, tertiary consumer. Tertiary consumer. So that is the next level. So here you see that 10%, it goes to 10%. So out of this 10, from this 10%, only 10% of energy is transferred. And if you see the number, the producers are in large number compared to the primary consumers. And if you compare the primary and secondary consumers, the secondary consumers are smaller in number compared to primary consumers. And if you see the trophic levels, the food pyramid, it just looks like this. The producers, they take part of the base. Here we can see that it is the more area compared to the each levels. So if you go from bottom to top, the bottom level is the biggest level, biggest trophic level, that is the producers are more in number in the environment compared to the primary consumers. Primary consumers take the second step, which are less in number compared to producers. And above the primary consumers, you find the secondary consumers, which are still less than primary. And if you go to the top, tertiary consumers are still less in number. You see, in a forest, the number of tigers is very less when compared to the grass or plants. So tigers are countable. You might have studied in your social studies in reserve forests and all, how many tigers are there. 500 tigers are there, 600 tigers are there, countable. But can anyone say that how many plants are there in a forest? So producers are in very large number, and the energy transfer from solar energy to the producer to the primary consumer, to the secondary consumer, to the tertiary consumer. In most cases, the tertiary consumers are carnivores. So in this way, the energy is transferred from one level to another level, and we call these levels as trophic levels, and this shows that pyramid, food pyramid. Now let us see food chain. Here we can see a food chain. See here, producer, a plant is being eaten by an insect, insect is being eaten by a bird, bird is being eaten by a fox. If you write all this, you can find like a chain. Of course, I have written it straight, but basically a food chain has to be written in the horizontal form. Let us write it and see. So let us see the food chains and food webs. So here is the food chain. Here we see different organisms. It has got some plants and some animals. Plant is eaten by insect. Insect is eaten by bird. Bird is eaten by a fox. Now you can find a relation here. Now the relation looks like a chain. Plant, insect, bird, fox. You see, deer is eaten by tiger. Plant is eaten by deer. Here you can find a chain. Plant, deer, tiger. But here both these chains are linked together. You see, one is common. Plant is common. That means Some of the organisms are not only a part of a food chain, they are part of more than one food chain. So it forms links between different food chains. This is one food chain, this is one food chain, both are linked here by plant. And see, the vulture may eat deer. The vulture may eat deer. And in the same way, here you can see ant eaten by frog or eaten by snake. This is a chain. Ant may eat plant. So here one more chain. Now, the frog may be eaten by bird. So frog is eaten by snake as well as by bird. So one animal or one organism of a food chain may be a part of another food chain also. So one organism can be a part of more than one food chain. It forms the links between the food chains, finally which forms a food web. You call it as a food web. So this way, bird can eat a snake. So here we can find the interrelation between the food chains. When it is like a web, you call it as a food web. So if you try to find the food relations between different components or different organisms of an ecosystem, you find them in the form of food chains or food webs. Now, let us see the disturbance caused in the environment. It disturbs our lives. We know that. We are discussing on the same issue. But how it is linked up to the food chains and food webs? Organisms are dependent on one another for their food requirements. So in this natural food chain or food web, if some artificial materials are entered by the human activities, so how they affect our lives? Here you see one concept called as biological magnification. What is this biological magnification? Accumulation of harmful chemicals in the bodies of some animals or humans is called as biological magnification. Harmful chemicals are accumulated. Harmful chemicals. All the food that we eat is chemicals, nothing but nutrients are nothing but chemicals, but they are not accumulated. You are getting the nutrients, you are eating chicken, you are eating fish, or you are a vegetarian, you are eating fruit, you are eating grains. So the materials present in them are absorbed by your body. Some of them are digested, which are not digested are excreted. So the digested nutrients are utilized by your body, waste is excreted out. You have mechanisms in your body, you have various biochemical reactions in your body, in which whatever the food we are taking, the food is properly utilized, unwanted materials are properly disposed. So by that your body is kept clean after using the food material or nutrient. But here, certain chemicals cannot be processed by your body. Certain chemicals cannot be digested nor filtered by your body. They get accumulated in various parts of your body, like fatty tissues and other parts. Certain chemicals get accumulated, leads to so many diseases like cancers and other diseases, which is a very major problem, threat to the life. So how the accumulation of harmful chemicals takes place in our bodies? You know the food chain, we get the food, we get it from a hen, from a chicken, you get it from a chicken, you get it from a chicken. So it might so the chicken has got harmful chemicals, it might got from the food, grains. So the grains have got these harmful chemicals, pesticides or insecticides. So how the grains have got? Because the plant is sprayed with such chemicals. Who is spraying? The farmers are spraying, because to protect the crop from the insects and pests, they are spraying chemicals. So these chemicals are absorbed by the grains. The animal that eats the grains, the harmful chemicals are transferred to the body of the animal. And this animal is eaten by human or some other animal. So the chemicals are transferred. So these plants and animals, they do not have the mechanisms to get rid of these chemicals, because they are non-biodegradable. Our bodies do not possess the enzymes which can break them into harmless form. Our bodies do not have that enzymes. Our bodies cannot break down the harmful chemicals into harmless chemicals. That is not achieved. So in the same form, in the same dangerous, harmful condition, they are transferred from one level to another level to another level. Finally, they get accumulated in the top level of the ecosystem. They are reaching us. So you have gone to the market to buy a fish. You don't know from where the fish has come. You don't know what kind of chemicals are accumulated in the bodies of fish. The researchers, they are doing a lot of research. They are doing so many tests to the food available in the market, and they are finding that many of the food items, even vegetables or any animal food like fish or chicken, if they test in the laboratories, they find that so many hormones are there, so many pesticides are there, so much of insecticides are there. That is the reason why all the people who are health conscious are turning towards organic. So we are going to the market and buying a brand which is named as organic, because organic, it shows that the food is grown in organic method by not using any artificial fertilizers, chemicals, but it is costlier when compared to the other foods, because chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides, they are cheap. The process is simple, even though it is harmful. So the product cost is less. Everybody cannot afford to buy organic. So we cannot buy organic products. They may be of double cost. So you buy 1 kg of grains, 100 rupees, organic 200 rupees. So organic methods are time consuming, power consuming. So many people must be involved in that, very slow, product will be less. So by that the cost is more. So everybody is worried. We cannot test each and every time the food we are eating. You have gone to market and buy a fish. So you cannot test the fish whether how much pesticide it has got. At least you don't know the source from where it has come. So it is the part of the government to ban catching the fish of certain areas where it is polluted water, likewise. So by that, at least to some extent, it can be, the health of the people can be saved. Anyway, the disturbance in the environment, it leads to such consequences. This is an example, the biological magnification. Even the fruits and vegetables, many chemicals are sprayed onto them. So the peels of the fruits and vegetables absorb the chemical. You cannot remove the chemical simply by washing. Just you wash under the tap with bare hands. Do you think it will remove? Many of the fruits, vegetables are eaten along with the peel. The peel might have absorbed the chemicals, pesticides. Many of the fruits we don't cut the peel. Guava, we don't cut the peel. We don't remove the peel. Gourds, we cut and we cook with the peels. That means we are consuming the harmful chemicals which get accumulated in our bodies, like various parts like kidneys and liver. When they are accumulated in large number, they cause very dangerous health conditions. How do our activities affect the environment? In the before session, we discussed about the biological accumulation of harmful chemicals. So that is one of the impact of the human activities and how it affects the environment. In the same way, you see that how do our activities affect the environment? The main important thing discussed here is that ozone depletion. What is ozone? Why it is important? Ozone depletion. Ozone is a kind of molecule which is comprised of oxygen atoms. Basically, oxygen molecule is O2. This is oxygen. But ozone is O3, which consists of 3 atoms of oxygen. Where is this ozone present? If this is the Earth, at the higher level of the atmosphere, so Earth is surrounded by atmosphere, at the higher level O3 is found, ozone is found. So how the ozone is formed? Ozone is formed by the ultraviolet radiation. The radiation that it reaches the Earth, it passes through this ozone. Here, this ultraviolet radiation, the higher energy part of the ultraviolet radiation, it splits the oxygen into oxygen atoms. The oxygen molecule is split into oxygen atoms. The oxygen atom combine with oxygen molecule to form ozone. O plus, O2, O3. That is by the action of ultraviolet radiation. So this ozone, it protects the earth from the direct radiation. So by that the temperature is maintained well. The harmful effects of the radiation are not there on the earth because due to the presence of ozone, but the level of ozone is getting depleted. From in the period of 1980s, it was observed that the percentage of ozone is getting depleted, especially near the polar caps. So by that the radiation is directly entering the Earth's atmosphere, which is very dangerous and harmful. And it was noticed that this is happening, the depletion of ozone is happening because of certain chemicals called CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. Which are highly reactive with the ozone molecules. Basically, ozone is a neutral and stable substance, but it is reacted with these compounds. So these compounds are used in refrigerators and aerosol sprays. So when these chemicals are released into the atmosphere, they reach the top parts of the atmosphere and they react with the ozone. So it leads to the depletion of ozone. So there were certain ban and norms were kept on this usage of CFCs, ban of usage of CFCs in various materials or in products. So by that they reduced the usage of such materials which are causing damage to the ozone. So this is one example, ozone depletion. So the greenhouse effect is caused, the pollution, air pollution is caused, soil pollution is caused, water pollution is caused. So everything is disturbed. As we discussed, the bioaccumulation, accumulation of pesticides in the bodies of living organisms. So everything is caused because of the human activities. So human activities are mainly aimed for progress, development, providing basic amenities to the peoples, providing comfort and luxury to the human life. But in that intention, we are not properly thinking proper solutions to the consequences. We are not completely discussing the consequences. We are not taking the proper measures about the consequences that occur due to the activities. So we don't want to sacrifice that. We don't want to decrease the amount of progress in terms of these consequences and other effects. We want it to be the progress in a very high rate, at a very high speed. But at the same time, there should be concern about the other things which are happening to the environment. Otherwise, they may lead to very dangerous conditions in which we cannot continue our life. So let us see this garbage that is produced at each and every house, that is dumped in the outskirts of cities. So this garbage is accumulated like piles, heaps, just like mountains. But how many days we do that? Every day tons and tons of waste is generated in the cities. It is dumped at some place. But is it a permanent solution? How it is going to affect the environment? So it is not the permanent solution of just dumping the waste at one particular point. There should be proper management of waste disposal. Waste can be segregated into degradable, non-biodegradable. Non-biodegradable waste also, some certain part of it can be recycled. So recycling has to be done. First, grading has to be done. Grading. In certain cases, in some places, the grading is done primarily at the point of source. Where is that source point? Homes, domestic. In the house itself, you can put the degradable waste in one bin, non-biodegradable waste in another bin. So by that, the non-biodegradable waste, it can be sent for recycling. The biodegradable waste, it can be dumped. So by that, it will be degraded. If it is done in a proper way, the effect of the waste will be less. Otherwise, it leads to so many dangerous problems, and after a long period, rectification is not possible. Even though the government spends thousands and thousands of crores of rupees, it is not possible. Today we see in the newspapers, the government has spent this many crores in purifying the water in Hussain Sagar. We see that the government has got a plan with this many thousands of crores to purify river Ganga. So why we are spending this many thousands of crores in purifying after polluting it? Why we are not aware at that point where we should not pollute it? So nobody is aware of that. So nobody is interested in doing that. Of course, the people are aware. If we do so, the water will be polluted, but they don't have any interest. They don't have any benefit in doing so. So see, even now, by spending hundreds or thousands of crores of rupees, if it is a manual work, you cannot completely purify a water body. It will take years and years of time, crores and crores of rupees of investment. You could use the money for some other purposes, welfare of the people. So everybody must be having a sense about the environment, so that intentionally we should not disturb the environment, because rectification process is a very difficult, time taking, long run, may be successful, may not be successful, but its effects will be very dangerous if once such kind of consequences arise. It will be very painful to the mankind, to the people, those who are living in the environment. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Please subscribe to our channel to get more videos on CBSE syllabus.